Few objects hold the power to change a life in an instant. Imagine receiving a gift on your wedding day that reveals a truth so shocking it could shatter your future. What if that gift was a mirror, reflecting not just your image, but the deepest secrets of your soul? Welcome to Whispers of the Mind, where we explore the hidden truths that shape our lives. Today, we unravel a tale of love, betrayal, and self-discovery. One that begins with a bride, a mysterious gift, and a vision that could change everything. Chapter 1: The Wedding Morning. Emily Harper stood before the full-length mirror in the bridal suite, her white gown cascading around her like a waterfall of dreams. The lace shimmered faintly in the soft morning light, filtering through the tall windows of the historic mansion, its golden rays dancing on the hardwood floor. She adjusted her veil, her fingers trembling slightly, not from cold, but from the whirlwind of emotions swirling inside her. Today was her wedding day, the culmination of a 5-year love story with Jack Thompson. And yet, beneath the excitement, a quiet unease lingered. The room buzzed with life. Her bridesmaids flitted about, their laughter mingling with the scent of roses and lavender from the bouquets resting on the vanity. Sarah Miller, her maid of honor, approached with a warm smile, her hands deftly smoothing the veil's edges. "Emily, you're a vision. Jack's going to lose his mind when he sees you." Emily returned the smile, though it didn't quite reach her eyes. "Thanks, Sarah. It's just surreal, you know? Like I'm in a movie or something." Sarah tilted her head, catching the flicker of doubt. "Nerves are part of the package. But you and Jack, you're the real deal. Everyone says so." Emily nodded, wanting to believe it. Jack was everything she thought she wanted. Charming, steady, the kind of man who proposed under the Eiffel Tower with a ring that sparkled like his promises. Yet, as the hours ticked closer to "I do," a whisper of something missing gnawed at her, too faint to name, but too persistent to ignore. A sharp knock interrupted her thoughts. The door creaked open, and the wedding planner, a brisk woman named Clara, stepped in, cradling a small package wrapped in silver paper with a satin bow. "Emily, this just arrived for you." No sender's name, just a tag that says "for the bride." Curiosity piqued, Emily crossed the room, her gown rustling softly. "That's odd. Who'd send something now? Maybe Jack's pulling a romantic stunt," chimed in Lisa, another bridesmaid, her eyes twinkling with mischief. Emily unwrapped the gift with care, revealing an antique hand mirror. Its oval frame was wrought in gold, adorned with delicate pearls and tiny gemstones that caught the light like captured stars. The glass bore faint scratches, hinting at years, perhaps centuries, of secrets. She turned it over, marveling at its beauty, when a small note slipped from the handle. Her breath caught as she recognized the elegant script. Unfolding it, she read aloud, her voice soft. "This mirror reflects the truth of your soul. Look into it before you make any life-changing decisions. With love, Grandma Rose." The room fell silent, the bridesmaids exchanging glances. Emily's eyes brimmed with tears. Grandma Rose, her confidant and compass, had died 6 months ago, leaving a void nothing could fill. How did this get here today?" she whispered, clutching the mirror to her chest. Sarah stepped closer, resting a hand on her shoulder. "Maybe she planned it. You know how she was, always one step ahead, making sure you felt her love." Emily swallowed hard, the weight of the gift sinking in. Grandma Rose had seen her through every heartbreak, every triumph, often with a knowing look that cut through her defenses. But this? A mirror delivered on her wedding day, with a message so cryptic, it felt like a lifeline from beyond the grave. She traced the frame, its cool metal grounding her. The note's words echoed, "The truth of your soul." What truth? She was about to marry Jack, the man she'd chosen. Wasn't that enough? Clara's voice broke the spell. 5 minutes, ladies. Time to line up." The room snapped back into motion, but Emily lingered, setting the mirror on the vanity. Its presence tugged at her, a silent question she couldn't answer yet. As the bridesmaids ushered her toward the door, she stole one last moment alone. She lifted the mirror, peering into its clouded surface. At first, it showed her reflection, pale, wide-eyed, the veil framing her face like a halo. Then, the image shimmered, dissolving into something else. She saw herself, but different. The dress was simpler, less ornate, and the man beside her wasn't Jack. It was Mark Evans, Jack's best friend, the best man, his dark eyes warm with a love she'd never dared imagine. They stood together, radiant, as if this were their day. Emily gasped, the mirror slipping from her grasp. It clattered onto the vanity, unbroken but trembling with her shock. She stared at it, heart pounding. What had she just seen? A trick of her mind? A dream? Emily, come on. Sarah called from the doorway. She blinked, shoving the vision down deep. It was nothing, just nerves, she told herself. But as she joined the others, the image lingered, sharp and unshakable, whispering truths she wasn't ready to face. Have you ever received an unexpected sign that made you rethink a big decision? What did you do about it? Chapter 2. The Vision. Emily stood in the bridal suite of the sprawling mansion, surrounded by silk drapes and the faint scent of lavender from her bouquet. Her bridesmaids bustled about, adjusting veils and giggling, but her attention was fixed on the antique mirror in her hands, a wedding gift from her late grandmother, delivered that morning with a cryptic note. This mirror reflects the truth of your soul. Look into it before you make any life-changing decisions. She'd laughed it off at first, but curiosity had gotten the better of her. Now, as she gazed into the ornate glass, her reflection blurred, replaced by a startling vision. She saw herself in a simpler wedding dress, standing beneath an arch of wildflowers. Beside her was Mark, Jack's best friend, his dark eyes soft with love as he slipped a ring onto her finger. They were laughing, radiant, as if this moment was their destiny. The vision vanished, and Emily gasped, nearly dropping the mirror. Her heart raced as she set it on the vanity, its gilded frame glinting in the sunlight streaming through the tall windows. What was that? She thought, pressing a hand to her chest. A trick of the mind? A daydream? But it had felt so real, too real. Emily, you okay? Sarah, her maid of honor, appeared at her side, frowning. You're pale as a ghost. Emily forced a smile, her mind still reeling. I'm fine, just overwhelmed, I suppose. Sarah tilted her head, unconvinced. You sure? You've been staring at that mirror like it's about to bite you. It's nothing, Emily lied, turning away to hide her trembling hands. But it wasn't nothing. Mark had been in her life for years, Jack's shadow, her confidant, the one who always knew how to make her laugh. She'd never considered him romantically. She was marrying Jack today, the man she'd chosen. Yet the vision gnawed at her, planting seeds of doubt she couldn't uproot. As the bridesmaids swept her toward hair and makeup, Emily stole another glance at the mirror. Its surface was still now, reflecting only the opulent room, the crystal chandelier, the velvet chaise, the wedding chaos. But the image of herself with Mark lingered, a quiet whisper against the certainty she'd once felt. Have you ever had a moment that made you question a choice you thought was set in stone? How did you handle the uncertainty? Chapter 3. Doubts and Reflections. The mansion's garden was a vision of elegance. Roses in full bloom, fairy lights strung across pergolas, a fountain gurgling softly in the distance. Emily stood beside Jack for the pre-ceremony photos, his arm around her, his grin wide and easy. The photographer called out directions, but Emily's thoughts drifted, snagged on the mirror's vision. You're quiet, Jack said, squeezing her waist. Everything okay? She nodded, mustering a smile, just taking it all in. He chuckled, oblivious to her turmoil. Best day of our lives, right? Right, she echoed, but her eyes wandered to Mark, who lingered near the fountain, adjusting his cufflinks. He caught her gaze and offered a small, lopsided smile, the kind that had always felt like a secret between them. Her stomach flipped, and she looked away, guilt clawing at her. Later, as the bridal party dispersed, Emily slipped away to a quiet corner of the garden, settling on a wrought iron bench beneath a canopy of ivy. The air was thick with floral perfume, a stark contrast to the storm brewing inside her. She closed her eyes, trying to silence the doubts, when footsteps crunched on the gravel. "Mind some company?" Mark's voice was gentle, hesitant. He stood a few feet away, hands in his pockets. Emily's pulse quickened. "Sure," she said, sliding over. He sat beside her, the silence heavy. After a moment, he spoke. "You've been off all day. What's going on?" She bit her lip, torn. Mark had always been easy to talk to, too easy maybe. "It's the mirror," she admitted. "I looked into it, and I saw myself marrying you, not Jack." Mark's jaw dropped, his eyes wide. "You're kidding." "I wish I were," she said, her voice trembling. "It felt so real, Mark. And now I'm wondering if I've been blind to something between us." He exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. "Emily, I've always cared about you more than I should, maybe. But Jack's my best friend. This is a mess." "I know," she said, tears prickling her eyes. "I don't want to hurt him, but I can't marry him if I'm not sure, if there's a chance I feel something for you." Mark leaned forward, elbows on his knees, staring at the ground. "What do we do? Pretend this didn't happen?" "I don't think I can," she whispered. "I need to know what's real." He met her gaze, his expression torn. "Then you got to figure that out fast. The clock's ticking." Emily nodded, the weight of his words settling over her like a shroud. The wedding loomed, a decision she couldn't postpone. When have you faced a truth that threatened to upend everything? Did you chase it or let it go? Chapter 4: Confrontation. The bridal suite felt suffocating as Emily paced, her gown rustling against the polished hardwood. She'd asked Sarah to fetch Jack and Mark. She couldn't keep this bottled up any longer. The mirror sat on the vanity, its presence a silent taunt. Jack burst in first, worry creasing his brow. "Em, what's wrong?" Sarah said, "It's urgent." Mark followed, his face tight with tension. Emily took a shaky breath, facing the two men who anchored her world. "I need to tell you something," she began, her voice unsteady. "I've been having doubts about the wedding, about us, Jack." He frowned, stepping closer. "Doubts? Now, what's changed?" "It's the mirror," she said, gesturing to it. "It showed me a vision of me marrying Mark instead." Jack's eyes flicked to the mirror, then to Mark, who stood rigid. "What the hell does that mean? Is this some kind of joke?" "No," Emily said, her throat tight. "It's made me question everything. I love you, Jack, but I might have feelings for Mark, too." The room went still, the air crackling with shock. Jack's face darkened, turning to Mark. "Did you know about this?" Mark nodded slowly. "She told me earlier. I didn't ask for this, Jack. I'd never." "Never what?" Jack cut in, his voice rising. "Never thought about her? Never wanted her?" "Stop it," Emily cried, stepping between them. "This isn't his fault. It's mine. I'm the one who's unsure." Jack's anger faltered, replaced by hurt. "Unsure? Emily, we're hours from I do. Are you saying you don't want this?" "I don't know," she said, tears streaming down her face. "I just need time to think." Mark spoke up, his voice low. "Maybe we should cool off. This is too much, too fast." Jack shot him a glare. "Don't tell me what to do. You've got no right to be here." "Jack, please," Emily begged. "I'm not trying to hurt you. I just can't pretend I'm okay when I'm not." He stared at her, jaw clenched, then shook his head. "Take your time, then. But I'm not sticking around to watch you figure it out." He stormed out, slamming the door. Emily sank onto the chaise, her sobs echoing in the silence. Mark knelt beside her, hesitant. "I'm sorry, Em. I never meant for this." "I know," she said, wiping her eyes. "But I have to face it now, whatever it is." How do you find courage when the truth might break someone's heart? What would you say to Emily right now? Chapter 5: The Decision. Emily sat alone in the bridal suite, the mirror's cool surface reflecting her tear-stained face. The clock ticked toward the ceremony, but her mind was a battlefield. Jack's pain, Mark's regret, her own confusion. It all swirled together, choking her. She looked into the mirror again, desperate for answers. The glass shimmered, revealing a new vision. Herself at a crossroads. One path led to Jack, steady and familiar. Another to Mark, uncertain but alive with possibility. Then a third appeared. A misty trail into a forest, solitary and uncharted. The vision faded and clarity struck. The mirror wasn't choosing for her. It was showing her she could choose herself. Not Jack, not Mark, but Emily, who she was beneath the expectations. She stood, smoothing her gown, resolve hardening within her. She had to act, even if it meant appending everything. Grabbing the mirror, she strode to the chapel, where guests murmured and the organ hummed. Sarah met her at the doors, alarmed. "Emily, what's happening?" Jack's fuming, Mark's a wreck. "I need to speak," Emily said firmly. "Can you quiet everyone?" Sarah hesitated, then nodded, signaling the organist. The room hushed as Emily stepped forward, heart pounding. "Thank you all for being here," she said, her voice clear. "I was supposed to marry Jack today, but I've realized I can't. Not because I don't love him, I do, but because I've been ignoring myself. I need time to understand who I am alone." Murmurs rose, but she pressed on. "I'm sorry for the hurt this causes. I hope you'll forgive me." Jack stood near the altar, stunned. Mark watched silent. Emily met their eyes, offering a sad smile, then turned to the crowd. "There won't be a wedding today. Thank you for your support." The guests filed out, whispering. Jack approached, his voice soft. "You're sure?" "Yes," she said, touching his hand. "I need this for me." He nodded, pained but accepting. "Be happy, Em." As he left, Emily stood in the empty chapel, the mansion's grandeur fading into the background. Alone, but free, a twist she hadn't seen coming, yet one that felt right. What's the bravest choice you've made for yourself? How did it shape who you are today? Chapter 6. The Ceremony. Sarah stared at Emily, her hands twisting nervously in front of her. "A mistake? Emily, this is your wedding day. Everyone's out there, your family, Jack's family, all our friends. What am I supposed to tell them?" Emily turned away, her gaze settling on the antique mirror still resting on the vanity. Its golden frame caught the light, a silent witness to the chaos unfolding within her. "Tell them the truth," she said quietly. "That I need time, that I'm not sure." Sarah stepped closer, her voice softening. "Em, I get that you're scared. Weddings are huge and doubts are normal. But postponing it now? That's a big deal. Are you sure this isn't just cold feet?" Emily shook her head, tears prickling at the corners of her eyes. "It's more than that, Sarah. I looked into that mirror, Grandma Rose's mirror, and I saw something. A different future. One where I was with Mark, not Jack. And it felt so real, so right, that I can't pretend it didn't happen." Sarah's eyes widened, darting to the mirror and back to Emily. "Wait, Mark? As in Jack's best friend Mark?" "Emily, what are you saying?" "I'm saying I might have feelings for him," Emily admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Feelings I didn't even realize until today. And now I don't know what to do. I love Jack, but I'm not sure it's the kind of love that lasts forever." Sarah sank onto the edge of the bed, processing the revelation. "Okay, hold on. This is a lot. Have you talked to Mark about this? Does he know?" Emily nodded, wrapping her arms around herself as if to hold her unraveling emotions together. "He came to check on me earlier. I told him about the vision, and he said he's loved me for years but never acted on it because of Jack. It's all such a mess, Sarah." Sarah let out a low whistle, running a hand through her hair. "Wow, that's intense. But Emily, visions or not, this is your life, not some fairy tale. Are you sure this mirror isn't just messing with your head? I mean, it's a beautiful gift, but it's still just an object." "It's not just an object," Emily countered, her tone firm. "Grandma Rose said it reflects the truth of your soul. And every time I look into it, I see myself with Mark. It's like it's showing me what I've been too afraid to admit." Sarah frowned. her practical nature warring with her loyalty to Emily. Okay, let's say it's true. Let's say your soul, or whatever, is pointing you toward Mark. What does that mean for Jack? You can't just walk away from him without a word. He deserves to know where your head's at. I've already talked to him, Emily said, her voice trembling. In the garden, just before you came in. I told him I'm having doubts, that I'm not sure we're right for each other. He was upset, angry at first, but then he said maybe we rushed into this. Maybe we both need time. Sarah's expression softened, a mix of relief and concern. So he's okay with postponing? I think so, Emily replied. He didn't fight me on it. He just let me go. It was almost like he's been feeling it too, but neither of us wanted to say it out loud. Sarah reached out, squeezing Emily's hand. Then maybe this is the right call. If you're both unsure, rushing into marriage won't fix that. But Em, you've got to tell everyone. They're waiting out there, and the longer you wait, the harder it'll be. Emily glanced at the clock. Only 30 minutes until the ceremony was supposed to start. Her stomach churned at the thought of facing the crowd, of explaining something she barely understood herself. But Sarah was right. She couldn't leave them in the dark. Will you help me? Emily asked, her eyes pleading. I don't think I can do it alone. Sarah smiled, a flicker of her usual warmth breaking through the tension. Of course I will. You're my best friend. We'll figure this out together. Moments later, Emily and Sarah stood at the entrance to the chapel. The soft hum of conversation quieted as guests noticed her presence, their faces a mix of curiosity and anticipation. Jack stood near the altar with Father Michael, his posture stiff, his eyes locked on her. Beside him, Mark shifted uncomfortably, his gaze flickering between Emily and the floor. Emily took a deep breath, gripping Sarah's hand for strength. I need to say something, she began, her voice carrying through the small space. The organist stopped playing, and a hush fell over the room. I know you're all here to celebrate with Jack and me, and I'm so grateful for that. But I can't go through with the wedding today. A gasp rippled through the crowd, but Emily pressed on. It's not because I don't love Jack, I do. But I've realized that I'm not ready to make this commitment, not when I'm unsure about what I truly want. It wouldn't be fair to him or to myself. She glanced at Jack, who gave her a small, pained nod, his acceptance a silent support. We've decided to postpone the ceremony, she continued, to take some time to figure things out. I'm sorry for the confusion and for any disappointment this causes. I hope you can understand. Whispers erupted among the guests, but Emily tuned them out, her focus narrowing to Jack and Mark. Jack stepped forward, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. Emily's right. We both need this. Thank you all for being here. But for now, there won't be a wedding. Father Michael cleared his throat, stepping in with calm authority. Let us respect their decision and offer them our support as they navigate this time. Please join us in the ballroom for refreshments while we adjust our plans. As the guests began to file out, their murmurs a mix of shock and sympathy. Emily felt a weight lift from her shoulders. It wasn't the ending she'd envisioned, but it was honest. She turned to Sarah, who gave her an encouraging nod, then looked at Jack. Thank you, she whispered, for understanding. Jack managed a faint smile. I just want you to be happy, Em, even if it's not with me. Before she could respond, Mark approached, his expression unreadable. Emily, can we talk? Alone. She nodded, her heart racing as she followed him out of the chapel and into the quiet hallway beyond. Chapter 7: Uncharted Paths. The hallway was dimly lit, the sounds of the departing guests muffled by the heavy wooden doors. Emily faced Mark, the air between them charged with unspoken questions. What you said in there, Mark began, his voice low, about not being sure. Does that mean you're considering what you saw in the mirror? Emily met his gaze, her emotions a tangled knot. I don't know, Mark. The vision, it felt so real, like a piece of me I've been ignoring. But I can't just leap into something with you because of it. I need to understand what I feel, not just what I saw. Mark nodded, his hands shoved into his pockets, as if to keep himself grounded. I get that, and I don't want to push you, but I meant what I said earlier. I've loved you for a long time. If there's a chance, even a small one, I'd wait forever to find out. His words hung between them, tender and raw. Emily's heart ached with the weight of possibility, but also with the grief of what she was leaving behind. I care about you, Mark, more than I realized. But I need time away from all of this, from Jack, from a wedding. I have to figure out who I am without all these expectations. Mark's eyes softened, a quiet strength in his expression. Take all the time you need. I'll be here, Emily. No pressure, no rush. She smiled, a flicker of hope breaking through her uncertainty. Thank you. That means more than you know. They stood there for a moment, the silence a bridge between their past and an unwritten future. Then Emily turned back toward the chapel, knowing there were still goodbyes to say, explanations to offer. But for the first time that day, she felt a sense of freedom, a chance to listen to her heart without fear. As she walked away, the mirror's vision lingered in her mind, not as a mandate, but as a question. What truth will you choose to follow? When life offers you a crossroads, how do you find the courage to step into the unknown? What guides you when the answers aren't clear? Chapter 8. Reflections and Revelations. Emily sat alone in the bridal suite of the mansion, the weight of her decision to postpone the wedding settling around her like a heavy fog. The room, once alive with the buzz of preparations and the promise of a future with Jack, now felt eerily still. Her gaze drifted to the antique mirror on the vanity, a gift from Grandma Rose that had turned her world upside down. Its golden frame seemed to glow faintly, as if it held secrets it was eager to share. She reached for it, her fingers brushing the cool metal as she traced its intricate designs. Grandma Rose's note had called it a mirror that reflected the truth of her soul, but Emily still wasn't sure what that meant. Was it showing her destiny, or simply amplifying the confusion in her heart? She thought back to the vision it had revealed, herself radiant and joyful, standing beside Mark instead of Jack. The image had shaken her, planting seeds of doubt about the life she'd planned. A soft knock broke her reverie. The door creaked open, and Sarah stepped inside, her eyes soft with concern. "Hey, Em, how are you holding up after everything?" Emily offered a faint smile, setting the mirror down. "I'm not sure. Okay, maybe? It's all a mess in my head right now." Sarah crossed the room and sat beside her, glancing at the mirror. "That thing's really stirred things up, hasn't it? Do you think it's actually showing you something real?" "I don't know," Emily confessed, her voice trembling slightly. "Every time I look into it, I see myself with Mark, happy, in love, like it's where I'm supposed to be. It's like it's pushing me toward him, but I don't know if I can trust it." Sarah tilted her head, thoughtful. "What if it's not about what's going to happen, but what's already inside you? Maybe you've had feelings for Mark all along, and the mirror's just forcing you to face them." Emily blinked, startled by the idea. "Mark? He's always just been Jack's best friend to me. But lately, there's something different. I can't explain it." Sarah squeezed her shoulder gently. "It's okay to feel lost right now, Em. You've had a huge day. Maybe this is your chance to figure out what you really want, without the wedding pressure clouding everything." Emily nodded, gratitude warming her chest. "Thanks, Sarah. I don't know what I'd do without you." "Anytime," Sarah replied with a grin. "Why don't you take another look in that mirror? See if it shows you anything new." Hesitant, Emily lifted the mirror again, peering into its glassy depths. Her reflection stared back at first, familiar and uncertain. Then the surface shimmered, and the scene changed. She saw herself standing alone in a sunlit garden, a peaceful smile on her lips. No Mark, no Jack, just her, content and whole. She lowered the mirror with a quiet gasp. "I saw myself alone this time, but I looked happy. What does that mean?" Sarah shrugged, a playful glint in her eye. "Maybe it's saying you don't need either of them to find happiness, that you're enough just as you are." The thought struck Emily like a revelation. Could it be that the mirror wasn't choosing between Mark and Jack, but showing her she had the strength to stand on her own? A flicker of empowerment sparked within her, easing some of the turmoil in her heart. Setting the mirror aside, she frowned thoughtfully. "Sarah, do you know anything about where this mirror came from? Grandma Rose gave it to me, but I don't understand why." "Not much," Sarah admitted. "Your grandmother was always a bit mysterious, though. Maybe there's a story behind it, something tied to your family." Emily's curiosity flared. "You're right. If I can figure out its history, maybe I'll understand why it's showing me these things." Sarah nodded enthusiastically. "That's a great idea. Digging into its past might give you some answers." For the first time since postponing the wedding, Emily felt a spark of purpose. The mirror had upended her life, but perhaps uncovering its origins would help her reclaim control of her future. When life throws you into uncertainty, how do you find your footing? Sometimes the answers lie within, if you're brave enough to look. Chapter 9: Uncharted Paths. Emily stood outside her grandmother's old Victorian house, the key trembling slightly in her hand. The house had been empty since Grandma Rose's passing 2 years ago, but Emily hoped it still held answers about the mysterious mirror that had upended her life. She took a deep breath, the crisp autumn air filling her lungs, and turned the key in the lock. The door creaked open, revealing the familiar foyer shrouded in shadows. The house smelled of lavender and old books, a comforting scent that tugged at memories of childhood summers spent here. Emily's footsteps echoed on the hardwood floor as she made her way to the attic, where her grandmother had stored her most cherished possessions. The narrow staircase groaned under her weight, and she couldn't shake the eerie sensation that unseen eyes followed her ascent. In the attic, dust motes floated lazily in the sunlight, streaming through a small, grimy window. Trunks and boxes lined the walls, relics of a life Emily only partially understood. Her gaze settled on a large oak trunk in the corner, its brass hinges dulled by time. With a racing heart, she knelt before it and lifted the lid, revealing a treasure trove of the past. Faded photographs, yellowed letters tied with ribbon, and an assortment of trinkets. Then, beneath a lace shawl, she found it, a small leather-bound journal with Rose embossed in gold on the cover. Emily's fingers brushed the worn leather as she opened the diary. The pages crackled faintly, releasing the faint scent of ink and nostalgia. Her grandmother's elegant handwriting filled the pages, chronicling her life, her joys, and her sorrows. As Emily read, a startling revelation unfolded. The mirror, with its ornate silver frame and uncanny visions, had been in their family for generations, passed down from one woman to the next. Each owner, it seemed, had experienced visions that shaped their most pivotal decisions. One entry stopped her cold. "The mirror showed me a future with Henry, a life of comfort and predictability. But I chose to follow my heart and marry James instead." Sometimes, the visions are not set in stone. They are merely possibilities. I wonder if it was a gift or a curse. Emily's breath caught in her throat. The vision she'd seen, herself with Mark, radiant and in love, or alone and content, weren't destinies carved in stone, but reflections of potential paths. Her mind spun with the implications. The mirror wasn't commanding her future. It was illuminating her choices. She pressed on, flipping through the pages. Another entry revealed more. The mirror's origins traced back to the 18th century, when it was supposedly enchanted by a witch as a gift to Emily's ancestor, Eliza. The journal described it as a tool of self-discovery, imbued with the power to reflect the viewer's deepest desires and fears, truths they might otherwise bury. Emily closed the journal, clutching it to her chest. The visions made sense now. The mirror had shown her a life with Mark because she harbored feelings for him she'd been unwilling to acknowledge, tangled as they were with her commitment to Jack. Yet it had also shown her a vision of independence, hinting that she didn't need anyone to define her happiness. The realization was both liberating and overwhelming. She needed more perspective. Tucking the journal under her arm, Emily decided to visit her Aunt Margaret, Grandma Rose's younger sister, who lived in a quaint cottage on the edge of town. If anyone could shed further light on the mirror, it was her. An hour later, Emily sat across from Aunt Margaret at a weathered kitchen table, a steaming mug of chamomile tea warming her hands. Her aunt, with her silver hair and sharp blue eyes, listened intently as Emily poured out her story. The visions, the postponed wedding, the confusion tearing at her heart. When Emily finished, Aunt Margaret leaned back in her chair, a knowing smile softening her features. "That mirror," she said, her voice low and melodic. "It's been a companion to the women in our family for centuries. But it's not here to dictate your life, Emily. It's a mirror in more ways than one. It shows you what's inside, the things you're afraid to face." "So the visions aren't real?" Emily asked, frowning. "Oh, they're real enough," Margaret replied. "But they're not the whole story. They're possibilities, reflections of your own heart and mind. What you do with them, that's up to you." Emily stared into her tea, watching the steam curl upward. "I saw myself with Mark, and I saw myself alone, happy. I don't know what to choose." Margaret reached across the table, squeezing Emily's hand. "Then don't choose yet. Trust yourself, dear. The mirror's gift is clarity, not answers. Follow your heart, wherever it leads." Emily left the cottage with a strange lightness in her step, the journal still tucked under her arm. The weight of indecision hadn't vanished, but it felt less suffocating now. The mirror had forced her to confront her feelings, for Mark, for Jack, for herself. And she knew what she had to do next: talk to them both honestly, and take control of her own path. By the time she returned to the mansion, dusk had painted the sky in hues of orange and purple. She found Mark in the garden, pruning the roses with a quiet focus. He looked up as she approached, his dark eyes flickering with concern and something deeper. Hope, perhaps. "Emily," he said, setting down the shears. "You've been gone all day. Is everything okay?" She nodded, stepping closer. "I've been thinking a lot about us, about the wedding, about everything. I found something today, something about the mirror. It's shown me things, Mark, possibilities. And I need to figure out what I want." He studied her for a moment, then gave a small, understanding nod. "I've been thinking too. I meant what I said before. I'll support whatever you decide. I just want you to be happy, whether that's with me, with Jack, or on your own." Emily's chest tightened with gratitude. "Thank you, Mark. I care about you, more than I've let myself admit. But I need time. The mirror showed me a future with you, but it also showed me I can be okay alone. I have to explore that before I can commit to anyone." He smiled, a bittersweet curve of his lips. "Take all the time you need. I'll be here." She returned the smile, a flicker of relief warming her. Whatever choice she made, she knew she wouldn't lose him, not as a friend, at least. As she turned to head inside, the mirror's weight lingered in her mind, a silent reminder that the greatest truths often lay within. Sometimes, the greatest revelations come from within. What truths have you discovered about yourself when you took the time to look inward? As the wedding bells toll, Emily faces a decision that could reshape her entire future. Will she trust the mirror's vision, or will she cling to the path she's always known? The answer lies in a twist so unexpected, it will leave you questioning the nature of truth itself. If you're intrigued by the whispers of the mind and the secrets they unveil, subscribe to Whispers of the Mind for more stories that challenge the boundaries of reality and perception. Join us as we delve into the shadows of the human psyche, where every reflection holds a story and every choice echoes through eternity. Don't miss the full tale of the Mirror of Truth. Watch now and uncover the shocking outcome that awaits. What would you do if a gift revealed a hidden truth about your life? Share your thoughts on Emily's story in the comments below. Have you ever had a moment like this? Hit that like button if this tale surprised you. Share it with friends who love a good twist. And subscribe for more stories that blur the line between reality and mystery.